Starting in the 1240s, the Mongols made repeated invasions of Syria or attempts thereof. Most failed, but they did have some success in 1260 and 1300, capturing Aleppo and Damascus and destroying the Ayyubid dynasty. The Mongols were forced to retreat within months each time by other forces in the area, primarily the Egyptian Mamluks. Since 1260, it had been described as the Mamluk-Ilkhanate War. First invasion. During the governorship of Batu in Persia, the Mongolian army under Yisur attacked Syria in 1244. The reasons for the attack unclear, but it may have been in retaliation for the Syrian participation on the Seljuk side in the Battle of Kozadag. In the autumn 1244, Yisur concentrated the Mongol forces in the upper Tigris Valley where they subjugated the Kurdish province of Aklat. Moving across, the Mongolian army encountered no resistance and ravaged the area en route. The fortified cities were untaken in his advance because Yisur was not prepared for siege assault. Passing through the territory of the city of Urfa, he crossed the Euphrates. He marched directly to Aleppo but went as far as Halin before the climate impaired his army's movements. Yisur sent envoys to Aleppo to demand submission of tribute, which Malik agreed to pay. The same demand were sent to Bohemond of Antioch, who chose not to fight them instead of defiance. Yisur withdrew his force back up the Euphrates Valley and received the submission of Malaysia. In Egypt, Sultan Salih decided to acquiesce to the results and made no attempt to raise an army to encounter the Mongols who had invaded his dominions in Syria. In 1251, as an expediency to buy peace, Sultan Nazir sent his representatives to Mongolia for the election of Monka and agreed to make Syria a vassal state of the Mongol Empire. 1260 invasion. In 1255, Hulagu sought to further expand the empire into the Middle East under orders from his older brother, the Great Khan Monka. Hulagu's forces subjugated multiple peoples along the way, most notably the center of the Islamic Empire, Baghdad, which was completely sacked in 1258, destroying the Abbasid Caliphate. From there, the Mongol forces proceeded into Syria. In 1260, Egypt was under the control of the Bahra Mamluks, while most of the Levant was still under the control of Ayyubid princes. The Mongols, for their part, had combined their forces with that of their Christian vassals in the region. The Georgians, the army of Cilician Armenia under Heathermai, king of Armenia, and the Franks of Bohemond of Antioch. In what is described by the 20th century historians René Grousset and Lev Gumilev as the Yellow Crusade, the combined forces captured the city of Aleppo, and then on March 1, 1260, under the Mongol Christian general Kitburka, took Damascus. The last Ayyubid king, and Nazir Yusuf, was captured by the Mongols near Gaza in 1260. However, Hulagu promised him that he would appoint Nazir Yusuf as his viceroy in Syria. With the Islamic power center of Baghdad and Syria gone, the center of Islamic power transferred to the Mamluks in Cairo. Hulagu's intention at that point was to continue south through Palestine to Egypt, to engage the Mamluks. However, Monka died in late 1259, requiring Hulagu to return to Karakoram to engage in the councils on who the next great Khan would be. Hulagu departed with the bulk of his forces, leaving only about 10,000 Mongol horsemen in Syria under Kitburka. Some of Kitburka's forces engaged in raids southwards towards Egypt, reaching as far as Gaza, where a Mongol garrison was established with 1,000 troops. The Mamluks took advantage of the weakened state of the Mongol forces, and, negotiating a passive alliance with the remnants of the Crusader forces in Acre, advanced northwards to engage the Mongols at the pivotal Battle of Ain Jalut in September 1260. The Mamluks achieved a decisive victory, Kitburka was executed, and the battle established a high water mark for the Mongol conquests. In previous defeats, the Mongols had always returned later to retake the territory, but they were never able to avenge the loss at Ain Jalut. The border of the Mongol Ilkhanate remained at the Tigris River for the duration of Hulagu's dynasty. Sultan Nazir and his brother were executed after Hulagu heard the news of the defeat of Kitburka at Ain Jalut. In December 1260, Hulagu sent 6,000 troops back into Syria, but they were defeated at the First Battle of Homs, Abbasid Caliphate in Cairo and the rebellion in Mosul. After the fall of Baghdad in 1258, a few of Abbasid princes fled to Syria and Egypt. There, the Abbasids still maintained a feeble show of authority, confined to religious matters, under the Mamluks. But their authority was limited to being figureheads. First of the caliphs in Cairo, al-Mustanzir II was dispatched to Iraq by Baybars. The caliph was reinforced with Syrian auxiliaries and the Bedouins. However, he was totally crushed by the Mongol vanguard in South Iraq in 1262. The Mongol protocrat and ruler of Mosul, Badr al-Din's son, sided with the Mamluks and rebelled against the rule of Hulagu. This led to the destruction of the city-state, and the Mongols finally suppressed the rebellion in 1265. 1271 invasion. The second Mongol invasion of Syria took place in October 1271, when 10,000 Mongols and Seljuk auxiliaries moved southwards from Rum and captured Aleppo. However, they retreated back beyond the Euphrates when the Mamluk leader Baybars marched on them from Egypt. Area alliances. In the second half of the 13th century, civil war had erupted in the Mongol Empire. In the Middle East, this manifested as conflict between the Mongols of the Golden Horde and the Mongols of the Ilkhanate, who battled over claims on Georgia and Azerbaijan. Both the Golden Horde and the Ilkhanate sought to strengthen their position via trade agreements or other types of alliances with other powers in the area. In 1261, Burqa of the Golden Horde allied with the Mamluk Sultan Baybars, against their common enemy the Ilkhanate. This alliance was both strategic, and also in terms of trade exchanges, as the Egyptians had been the Golden Horde's long-standing trade partner and ally in the Mediterranean. For their part, the Mongols of the Ilkhanate sought an alliance with the Franks of Europe, but did form a Byzantine-Mongol alliance with the Christian Byzantine Empire. Conflict between the Golden Horde and the Ilkhans. The two western Mongol realms, the Golden Horde and the Ilkhanate, were already in open war. The roots of the conflict were related to battles between the descendants of Genghis Khan over the control of the empire. The immediate successor to Genghis Khan was his son Ogedei, but the leadership was then taken by force by the descendants of Genghis' son Tolua. During the reign of Kublai Khan, descendants of Genghis's other sons Ogedei, Chagatai, and Jochi sought to oppose the rule of Kublai. The Ilkhanate had been founded by Hulagu, another of Tolui's sons, who was therefore loyal to Kublai. The Golden Horde had been founded by Genghis' son Jochi, following the Mongol invasion of Central Asia. Genghis had designated several of the territories south of the Caucasus to Jochi, specifically Georgia, and the Seljukid Sultanate. Hulagu, with the backing of his brother the Great Khan Kublai, invaded and captured these territories in 1256. Even installing his capital in the center of the disputed territories, at Maraha. Burqa, the leader of the Golden Horde, could not tolerate this infringement of his inheritance, and a drawn-out conflict between the two Mongol realms continued well into the 14th century. Ethnic and religious affinities. Various affinities led to a more or less natural alliance between the Mongols of the Golden Horde and the Mamluks of Egypt. The Mamluks Empire had been founded by former slaves bought from the Kipchak territory of southern Russia, which was now an important segment of the Mongol Golden Horde. There were therefore already cultural affinities between large segments of the Mongol horde and the ruling elite of Egypt. Burqa's Turkic subjects also spoke the same Turkic language as the Mamluks. Further, the Golden Horde, under Burqa's leadership, was the first of the Mongol states to convert to Islam, which lent to solidarity with the Islamic realms to the south. On the other hand, the Ilkhan rulers were highly favorable to Christianity, and did not commit to Islam until 1295, when the Ilkhan Ghazan, a descendant of Tolua, formally converted when he took the throne. Even after his conversion, though, he continued to battle the Mamluks for control of Syria, while simultaneously seeking an alliance with Christian Europe. Mamluk Golden Horde Rapprochement. The Golden Horde entered into a defensive alliance with the Mamluks in Egypt, with the agreement being that each realm would intervene if the other was attacked by the Ilkhanate. This required the Khan to devote forces to both his northern and southern borders, and never use all forces in a single battle. On multiple occasions, the forces of the Ilkhanate would start a campaign towards Syria in the south, only to be forced to recall troops within a few months because of attacks from the Golden Horde in the north. 1281 Invasion. The third major invasion took place in 1281 under Abakar Khan. Having crossed the Euphrates and captured Aleppo, the Mongols of the Ilkhanate moved as far south as Homs with 80,000 men before they were beaten back to the Euphrates River at the Second Battle of Homs. The Ilkhan Tekuder was friendly to Islam, and sent a letter to the Mamluk Sultan to broach the subject of peace. But Tekuder's envoy was arrested by the Mamluks. Tekuder's conversion to Islam and attempts to make peace with the Mamluks were not popular with the other nobles of the Ilkhanate. When Tekuder's brother Arghun challenged him for the throne, Tekuder sought assistance in vain from the Mamluks, but was executed. Arghun took power, and as directed by the Great Khan Kublai continued Mongol attempts to conquer Syria. The Mamluk-Ilkhanate War, 1299–1303. In late 1299, the Mongol Ilkhan Mahmud Ghazan, son of Arghun, took his army and crossed the Euphrates River to again invade Syria. They continued south until they were slightly north of Homs, and successfully took Aleppo. There, Ghazan was joined by forces from his vassal state of Cilicia and Armenia. The Mamluk relief force sent from Damascus met the Mongol army northeast of Homs, at the Battle of Wadi al-Khazanda in December 1299. The Mongols had some 60,000 troops, with about 40,000 Georgian and Armenian auxiliaries, and routed the Egyptian Mamluks with their much smaller force of 20,000 minus 30,000 troops. The Mamluks retreated, and were harassed by Maronite and Druze bowmen who wanted independence from the Mamluks. One group of Mongols also split off from Ghazan's army, and pursued the retreating Mamluk troops as far as Gaza, pushing him back to Egypt. The bulk of Ghazan's forces then proceeded onward towards Damascus. Some of the populace of Damascus, upon hearing of the Mongol approach, had fled to Egypt, and the governor of the city, Arjawash, had entrenched himself deep inside the citadel of Damascus. The Mongols besieged the city for 10 days, which surrendered between December 30, 1299, and January 6, 1300, though its citadel resisted. Ghazan then withdrew most of his forces in February, promising to return in the winter of 1300–1301 to attack Egypt. The reason for the withdrawal is believed to be either the Chagatai Mongols invading their eastern borders, or the need to retreat to areas where there was better grazing room for the horses. The Mamluks had learned that the availability of pastures was important to the Mongols, and so had taken to burning pasture land so as to prevent the rapid advance of the Mongol cavalry. After Ghazan's main force withdrew, only about 10,000 horsemen remained in Syria, under the Mongol general Muley, with the retreat of the majority of forces from both sides, for about 3 months, until the Mamluks returned in May 1300. Muley's forces were in technical control over Syria, and some Mongols engaged in raids as far south as Jerusalem and Gaza. However, when the Mamluks returned from Egypt, the remaining Mongols retreated with little resistance. Also in early 1300, 2 Frankish rulers, Guy d'Ibelin and Jean II de Giblet, had moved in with their troops from Cyprus in response to Ghazan's earlier call. They had established a base in the castle of Nefan in Giblet on the Syrian coast with the intention of joining him, but Ghazan was already gone. They also started to besiege the new city of Tripoli, but in vain, and then returned to Cyprus. In late 1300, Ghazan's forces had dealt with the distraction of the Chagatai invasion on their northern border, and once again turned their attention to Syria. They crossed the Euphrates River between December 14, 1300 and November 1, 1301. Again, the Mamluk army in Syria withdrew without engaging in combat, which resulted in a panic in Damascus when they heard of the new threat from the Mongols. The Syrians of Hammett were able to achieve a small victory against the Mongols at a battle near Aleppo by the post of Hammett. This created order in Damascus, enough for the governor to send for a larger relief force from Egypt. However, the Mongols had already left Syria due to a death in Ghazan Khan's family. The Ilkhanate returned to Syria in 1303, traveling unopposed down the Levant until they reached Damascus. However, near Damascus they were once again soundly defeated by the Mamluks at the Battle of Marj al-Safar in April 1303. This military operation was the last major Mongol invasion of Syria. Treaty of Aleppo. Following the defeat of the Mongol ruler Ghazan and the progressive conversion of the Ilkhanate to Islam, the Mongols finally were amenable to ceasing hostilities. The first contacts to establish a treaty of peace were communicated via the slave trader al-Majd al-Salami. After the initial communications, more formal letters and embassies were exchanged. Under the Ilkhanate ruler Abu Sa'id, who was following the advice of his custodian Chupan, the treaty with the Mamluks was ratified in 1322–1323. Following the treaty and a period of peace, the Ilkhanate further disintegrated, and effectively disappeared during the 14th century.